Hello, everybody, and welcome to another one in our series, Breaking Down Barriers, my journey from a small African village to the world stage. And I use as the backdrop to our calls and conversations this particular book, which I have written, called Breaking Down Barriers, my journey from a small African village to the world stage. My name is Chris Igwe, and the idea is really to just take a few thoughts, a few chapters, a few ideas, and just explore them with you to understand a little bit more about not only what is going on in my world, but that's not the objective of the book itself. It's to help you to actually understand for yourself what are the things that are your building blocks to the future, to your growth and to your experience, both wherever you are now or where you expect to head to. I take a chapter, I break it down, I give you my thoughts and ideas and philosophy, I give you a little story, I give you some action items, critical thinking questions, and of course a quote, because I love quotations. So let's get started. Today we're going to talk about this particular chapter, which is called or entitled Consider the Power of Cultural Diversity. Consider the power of cultural diversity. And each of those words has a meaning and has an impact. Consider means think about it. Like I said, this book it has critical thinking questions, it has action items. It's like a workbook in many ways. I want you to dig down into yourself, ask yourself those questions, and come up with your own answers and solutions to them as well. So consider is one word. The other word that's important is power, which we'll come back to a little bit later on. And then, of course, cultural diversity. Let me start off on this occasion by giving you essentially what I've written here, which I think really positions our conversation going forward. I'll start off by saying cultural diversity is a popular topic today. These two words, so cultural and diversity, or culture and diversity, hide the depth of their meaning. They don't actually explain the profound impact that they can have if we just gloss over them, which very often we do, because they're words that are in our vocabulary every single day now. You can't get away from it in some way, shape or form. And when you add in inclusiveness, that's also another part. So diversity and inclusion is another part. I continue. These are insights. There are insights into the words. Our jobs mean that, for example, wherever we live today, we can move wherever we want to. A long, long time ago, many of us didn't travel that far. We didn't move that far. We stayed in our village, in our town, in our environment. Today we have jobs that take us all over the world. We can travel, low-cost airlines, whether it's for vacation or actually the jobs that you are changed and moved to as an expat or as a local individual. So our jobs mean that we can live wherever we want. With mixed marriages, I'm in a mixed marriage, becoming more and more commonplace. Workplaces have more people from different cultures, different countries, different ethnicities. But as we learn from each other, we will make mistakes. We will make mistakes. We may say the wrong thing. We may misunderstand a phrase or a word, or even fail in terms of our expectations of other people. These are all natural parts of the learning process when cultures intersect. The key to succeeding, however, this is what I'm suggesting to you, is awareness. Awareness. We must always try to be sensitive to the fact that we may be entering into unfamiliar territory. If in doubt, ask the other person how to behave, what to say, what not to say. This is a mark of respect. But they would also be happy to explain, quite frankly, providing we are open and genuine in our desire to learn. But the most important step is to engage in conversation with people from other backgrounds to share cultural experiences and embrace each other's worlds. So that's my sort of introduction to the question or the discussion around cultural diversity, what it really means. And let's break it down maybe into a couple of other areas. You may say, well, okay, that's great, but what does that mean? So the two words, I'm going to separate them out very briefly. I did talk in a previous video, a previous chapter about mixed marriage. and the fact that I'm in a mixed marriage and what that created in terms of cultures colliding from Scotland, where my wife is from, and Nigeria, where I'm from. But culture is about encompassing social behavior, a way of life. Here are a few thoughts for you to take away. Culture focuses around, for example, customs, beliefs, laws, opinions, ideas, and they are associated with particular groups or countries or nationalities. It is, in a sense, their way of life, if you like. That is their culture. That is the way they behave. And to give you a couple of examples, when we lived in the Netherlands, for example, what I discovered very early is that, maybe it's a little less so now, I'm sure it is, but the office would be emptied out fairly quickly around 5 to 6 p.m. in the evening because they were going home to have their dinner or make their dinner. The Dutch generally ate earlier. Again, I'm using the conditional. I don't know if that is always the case now. I know it's not a bit like in France. We used to have a 2-hour lunch or 1.5-hour lunch, but now it's maybe 45 minutes or 50 minutes. So things change, cultures evolve. But at the time in the Netherlands, it was that. They would go home, eat early, which is great. I had to adapt to that when my team started to say, well, we're leaving, we're going off, it's time to go home, clock's ticking. The other example is the Dutch as well do like the idea of leaving the ground floor of their homes without curtains, again, in certain areas. And it was funny because where we lived in the Netherlands, for example, we moved in and we wanted to see the hedge grow. So the hedge grew. Our front sitting room opened up into the street. And on the other side, we went to meet our neighbors for the first time. And our neighbor said to us, strangely enough, sounded really bizarre, we would like you to cut down or trim your hedge because now that it has grown, we can't look into your front window anymore. We can't see what's going on. And that is what we do. We leave our front windows open. Not the windows themselves, but obviously not necessarily curtains. And again, that's a cultural thing. There are many other fun examples one can take. In France, we love our boulangerie, our bakery. We go to our bakery certainly every Saturday and Sunday. You queue, you take as long as is necessary to buy your pastries, your croissant, your pain au chocolat, whatever you want. These are all cultural aspects. But what about diversity then? Well, diversity, again, we talk a lot about it. It breaks down into many different areas, but it's very much around the differences in us as human beings. And here are just a few examples: race, origin, nationality, language, gender, sexual orientation, religion, spiritual beliefs, age, social status, education, abilities. These are all parts of diversity. And so when you put the two together and you've got culture and diversity together, what I'm saying here is, let's look for the power. Let's look not at what separates us, but what brings us together. Because as we learn through each other's culture, through each other's diversity, we actually gain power. And what does that power mean? Well, in an absolute sense, you could say power is all about control. It's about authority. It's having domination over somebody else. You can think of it in a corporate environment, or a patriarchal father, for example, or matriarch, could be the same, in a family. But that's not what I'm talking about here in terms of power. I'm talking about having the ability to create an environment which allows both to be open to each other. Firstly, there's got to be acceptance and awareness. And once you have those two, it then opens up a boulevard of opportunity to engage, discuss, and actually seek to understand each other better. Because once you understand each other better, you become stronger. Cultural diversity is actually a very powerful tool to bringing people together. Because as you learn about the other person, you learn about yourself. This is strange, but it's rather like a mirror. The way in which you treat and behave towards other people, the way you treat them, is a reflection of who you are in your inner self. And that's what you want to come out. So you learn about cultural diversity. This kaleidoscope of life. You accept, you're aware, and then you grow through it. You become stronger. Because through that power, not only does it help lift other people up, but it lifts you up as well. So imagine someone who is not so well accepted because of their origins, their ethnicity, their sexual orientation. And you come to them and you say, I don't fully understand, or maybe I don't necessarily accept, but let me understand with you. Let me work through this with you. Tell me more about it. And then as you embrace that, they find a friend in you. They find someone in whom they can confide. And then it builds into hopefully a friendship of some description. You've given somebody a new lease of life, a beacon of hope that perhaps they didn't have before. And then you get satisfaction, because we all love to help and support each other. If you have a real heart for giving and caring and growing, then you will. So those are some of the elements of what I wanted to share with you, the power that you can gain through cultural diversity. And in the book, as I said, I often leave thoughts for you. And I guess one which would be for those who want to seek it out. I don't know if you can find it anymore, but a recommended resource, I give resources in each of the books, is the classic movie, which is called Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, with Sidney Poitier and Katharine Hepburn. It was an absolute classic. And as the story is, effectively a black man being brought home for the first time by his girlfriend to be his wife. And that whole tension back in a time when mixed marriages, a bit like my wife's and mine, was not necessarily fully accepted and embraced. Although I had a wonderful relationship with my in-laws and my wife with my parents as well. But here's the question that I have, or an action item, which is basically, which cultures different from your own have you had experience with? Which cultures have you had difference and experiences with? And that's easier today, perhaps, but I know I have some friends who, when they move to another country, they only want to live within certain ethnicities. And they are, let's, for the sake of argument, white people. They're British, they're American. They want to live amongst Asians, for example, or they want to live amongst Africans because of the noise, the color, the excitement, the food, the cacophony of sound all the time, or the markets. They love being close to markets. I have friends like that who actually seek out places where they are involved in a culture that is totally different from their own, because there they learn, there they give, they share. Their homes are as open as anybody else's they go to. That's really what I'm wanting to convey, is firstly consider, if you're not there yet and you're a bit on a journey with some of those elements of diversity I've talked about, which maybe don't sit so comfortably with you, maybe that's the direction you should go in. Maybe you have friends who are lesbians, homosexual, have a certain sexual orientation, which is totally different from the way you see the world. Maybe it's just color. Inevitably, that's a big topic today. Different colors of people, of nationalities. Discover. I encourage you to go out and discover. But for those of us who've lived and worked abroad, and I've lived and worked in 6 different countries, speak different languages, met different cultures, it's the most wonderful gift that you can have and that you can give somebody else as well, is this ability to have this melting pot of so much that you learn and discover for yourself, and you grow. And that's what we're all seeking to do, is to grow. So I want to leave you with that. Hopefully it's resonated. If it has, then please feel free to comment, like, subscribe to the channel so you know when other videos are becoming available. But until the next time, thank you and goodbye.